The great court of Halvrion Prime, the heart of the Xarnak Empire, hummed with whispers as the diplomats from Earth disembarked. The vaulted chamber, an expanse of gleaming obsidian and silver-veined pillars, stretched higher than the human eye could track, its ceiling lost among stars projected in the vast dome. Hundreds of alien dignitaries from across the galaxy sat perched on ornate, floating platforms, suspended above a smooth black floor that rippled like a frozen sea. The Xarnak were known for their rigid diplomacy and ancient customs, but today, all attention was focused on the newcomers. 4 humans stood in the center of the court. The leader, Ambassador Fiona Westbrook, was calm, but even she could feel the collective gaze of thousands of alien eyes boring into them. Beside her stood her military attaché, Colonel Isaac Vaughn, his formidable height and imposing presence casting a long shadow over the other 2, her aide, Olivia Harding, and the quiet, unassuming engineer, Lieutenant Zoe Parker. They were the first Earth delegation to Halvrion Prime, and the Xarnak had made it clear that the stakes were high. The Xarnak Empire was one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, a civilization older than Earth's recorded history. Their empire had seen countless species rise and fall, and though they maintained a delicate balance of power with other major factions, their influence was undeniable. At the far end of the court, on a raised dais, sat Emperor Talvos, a figure wrapped in gleaming silver armor, his face obscured by a ceremonial helm crowned with blue, flickering energy. His eyes glowed faintly beneath the visor, and his long, clawed fingers tapped the armrest of his throne rhythmically, a habit that betrayed only a sliver of impatience. The court grew silent as High Chancellor Gorthon stepped forward. A Xarnak of imposing stature, his red-scaled skin shimmered under the soft light, his 4 yellow eyes narrowing as he addressed the humans. "Earth has come far," he began, his voice a deep rumble that echoed through the chamber. "And yet you stand before the might of the Xarnak Empire. You request alliance, mutual respect, trade. But before any such agreement is made, the Emperor demands the traditional exchange." Fiona smiled thinly, having anticipated this moment. "We are prepared, Chancellor. We come bearing a gift for the Emperor, as is your custom." Gorthon tilted his head slightly, a flicker of curiosity crossing his stern features. "Indeed, we are aware of human rituals regarding gifts, though we find the concept perplexing. Why give without expectation of return? Such acts are uncommon in the galaxy." Isaac glanced at Fiona. They had discussed this on the journey, how many alien species saw gift-giving as a form of weakness, an act of desperation or subservience. But humans understood it differently. Fiona stepped forward, her voice steady. "It is not without expectation, Chancellor. It is a symbol of trust, of goodwill, a gesture to show we are here in peace." Gorthon's eyes flickered with something unreadable, but he nodded, gesturing for them to proceed. With a wave from Fiona, Lieutenant Parker stepped forward and produced a small holographic pad. A shimmer of blue light flickered, and then floating above it appeared the unmistakable shape of a Terran warship. Not just any warship, but the Artemis, Earth's most advanced battlecruiser. The Xarnak court erupted into murmurs, ripples of astonishment running through the gathered dignitaries. Gorthon's eyes widened, and even Emperor Talvos leaned forward in his throne, his clawed fingers halting their rhythmic tapping. Fiona's smile widened slightly. "We present the Xarnak Empire with one of Earth's finest vessels, the Artemis, fully operational, armed, and crewed by volunteers. It is yours, should the Emperor accept." For a long, tension-filled moment, the chamber was silent. Then, with a deep and resonant hum, Emperor Talvos rose from his throne. The vast room seemed to shrink in his presence as he descended the steps of the dais, each movement precise and deliberate. When he spoke, his voice was like thunder, low and commanding. "You offer a warship, Ambassador, one of your greatest weapons. Why?" Fiona met his gaze, unwavering. "Because Earth does not approach its allies with half measures. We understand the Xarnak value strength above all. This is our way of showing we are willing to stand as equals by giving you the means to defend that strength." Talvos stared at her for what felt like an eternity, his eyes glowing brighter beneath the helm. Then, without warning, he threw his head back and laughed, a deep, booming sound that echoed through the chamber like a seismic wave. The court froze, stunned. Even Gorthan looked shocked, his mouth opening slightly in disbelief. When Tilvos finally ceased his laughter, he spoke again, his tone lighter but no less imposing. "You surprise me, humans. A gesture like this is unexpected. Gorthan, tell me, have we ever received a gift such as this before?" The High Chancellor shook his head slowly. "No, my Emperor. Never." Tilvos's gaze shifted back to Fiona. "I accept your gift, Ambassador. But understand this, if you give me a weapon, I will not hesitate to use it. On my enemies, or on those who betray me." Fiona nodded. "We understand, Emperor. We would expect nothing less." For a brief moment, Tilvos stared at her, then he turned sharply to Gorthan. "Ensure the ship is integrated into our fleet immediately. The humans have earned a place of honor at the upcoming council." The murmurs in the court grew louder, this time filled with awe and respect. Invitations to the council were rare, reserved only for the most trusted allies of the Xarnak Empire. The humans had just taken a massive step forward. As the humans were escorted to their quarters, Isaac leaned in close to Fiona, his voice low. "You really think giving them a fully armed warship was a good idea?" Fiona smirked. "It's not just a warship, Isaac. It's a statement. They think we're giving them something dangerous, something they can use, but they have no idea what we've really just handed them." Isaac raised an eyebrow. "Care to elaborate?" "You'll see," Fiona said cryptically. "For now, let's just hope they don't figure it out too soon." The humans were housed in a wing of the Imperial Palace, a massive spire that rose above the capital city of Halvryon Prime. The palace itself was a marvel of Xarnak engineering, a mix of sweeping organic architecture and sleek, metallic structures that shimmered in the low light of the planet's distant star. The walls of their quarters were adorned with intricate alien tapestries that seemed to shift and move as one looked at them, a reminder of the strange, ancient culture they had entered. As they settled in, Fiona gathered her team in the central chamber of their suite, a large room with a panoramic view of the city below. The sky was a deep, bruised purple, and in the distance they could see the colossal shipyards where the Artemis would soon be docked among the Xarnak's own formidable fleet. Isaac folded his arms, his face still etched with concern. "I don't like it. We've handed over one of our most powerful assets. If they decide to turn on us, we're giving them the keys to our destruction." Olivia, always the optimist, chimed in. "But if they don't turn on us, we've just secured one of the strongest alliances in the galaxy. That's got to count for something." Fiona turned to Zoe, the quiet engineer who had thus far remained silent. "What do you think, Lieutenant?" Zoe shifted uncomfortably under the weight of the attention but spoke in her usual calm, measured tone. "The Artemis is more than just a warship. The systems we've installed are unique. They'll figure it out eventually, but by then they'll see the benefits outweigh the risks." Isaac frowned. "You're being vague again." Fiona chuckled. "That's because the Artemis isn't just a gift, it's a Trojan horse." Isaac blinked. "A what?" "Not in the literal sense," Zoe clarified, "but the ship is designed to gather data on its surroundings. Every system it integrates with, every fleet command it receives, it will send back intel to us, encrypted so deeply they won't notice for years." Olivia's eyes widened. "So we gave them a spy ship." "Not exactly," Zoe said. "It's not spying on them. It's just watching, learning. And when the time comes, it can also disable its own systems remotely. If they ever turn it on us, we'll shut it down before they can fire a single shot." Isaac let out a low whistle. "Now that's some clever engineering." Fiona's expression turned serious. "The Xarnak are powerful, yes, but they're also predictable. They think we're weak because we engage in diplomacy, because we come offering gifts. What they don't realize is that human diplomacy is just another form of strategy. We never give without a plan." Days passed, and the humans attended several high-profile meetings with the Xarnak officials. Each time, they were treated with more respect than the last, their position within the Empire steadily rising. The Artemis was quickly integrated into the Xarnak fleet, and reports of its impressive capabilities spread through the ranks like wildfire. One evening, as they dined in their quarters, A soft chime echoed through the room, a signal that someone was at their door. Fiona stood and opened it to find Gorthan, flanked by two heavily armored Xarnak guards. His expression was unreadable, but his presence alone was enough to set the humans on edge. "May I come in?" Ambassador Gorthan asked, though it was clear he wasn't really asking. Fiona nodded, stepping aside to let him enter. The Xarnak Chancellor swept into the room with the air of someone used to command, his yellow eyes scanning the surroundings before he spoke. "You have done well, humans. The Emperor is pleased with your gift. But there is a matter we must discuss, one of importance." Fiona exchanged a glance with Isaac before turning back to Gorthan. "Of course. What is it?" Gorthan's gaze settled on her, intense and focused. "The Empire has recently received intelligence regarding an uprising on one of our outer colonies. A rebellion fueled by outside forces. We suspect human involvement." Isaac stiffened. "We had no knowledge of any such rebellion." Gorthan's eyes flickered. "Perhaps. But the Emperor believes it would be a fitting test of our new alliance if your warship were to be the one to put down this insurrection. Prove your loyalty to the Xarnak Empire, and there will be no doubt about our partnership." The room fell into a tense silence. Fiona knew this was a calculated move, one designed to force them into a corner. If they refused, it would cast doubt on their intentions. If they agreed, they would be sending human soldiers to crush a potentially innocent rebellion, one they knew nothing about. "That's a delicate request," Fiona said carefully. "We will need more information before we can agree to such an operation." Gorthan smiled coldly. "I thought you might say that. Very well. You have 24 hours to make your decision. The Emperor will expect your answer by then." Without another word, he turned and left, his guards following in silence. The door slid shut behind them, and the tension in the room seemed to snap like a taut wire. Isaac exhaled sharply. "This feels like a trap." Olivia nodded. "He's testing us. If we say no, they'll assume we're involved with the rebels. If we say yes, we're committing to a fight we don't understand." Fiona paced the room, her mind racing. She had expected challenges, but this was beyond anything they had anticipated, and yet she knew there was only one option. "We'll go," she said finally, her voice firm. "But we'll need to do it on our terms." Isaac frowned. "What do you mean?" Fiona's eyes gleamed with determination. "We need to reach those rebels before the Xarnak do. If we can find out the truth, what's really going on, we might be able to turn this situation to our advantage." Zoe looked up, her quiet voice cutting through the tension. "And if the rebels really are backed by humans?" Fiona's jaw tightened. "Then we'll have to make a choice. But either way, we're not walking into this blind." The following day, the humans boarded the Artemis, now docked at the Xarnak fleet's central shipyard. The vessel was a sight to behold, sleek and powerful, its dark hull bristling with advanced weaponry and cutting-edge technology. Even among the Xarnak's formidable warships, the Artemis stood out as a marvel of human engineering. Fiona stood on the bridge, flanked by Isaac and Olivia, while Zoe worked at one of the tactical stations. The Xarnak had given them command of the mission, but it was clear they would be watched closely. Several Xarnak observers had been assigned to the ship, their yellow eyes following every move the humans made with a barely concealed air of suspicion. As the ship powered up, the hum of its engines reverberating through the deck, Fiona took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth, their first test as allies of the Xarnak Empire. "Set a course for the colony," she ordered. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The Artemis leaped into hyperspace, the stars outside the viewport stretching into long, glowing lines as the ship hurtled toward its destination. The journey was tense, the weight of their mission hanging over them like a storm cloud. When they arrived at the outskirts of the colony's system, they were greeted by a chaotic scene. The Xarnak garrison station there was already under attack. Ships of unfamiliar design darted through the void, their weapons blazing as they exchanged fire with the Xarnak defenders. Fiona's eyes narrowed as she studied the battle on the display. "Those aren't human ships," she muttered. Olivia frowned. "So who are they?" Zoe's fingers flew over her console. "I'm running a scan now. The designs are strange. It looks like a coalition force, multiple species working together. But their technology is cobbled together, not advanced enough to be a real threat to the Xarnak fleet. Isaac nodded grimly. Desperate. That's why they're rebelling. Fiona's mind raced. If the rebellion wasn't human-backed, then there was still a chance to salvage this without committing Earth to unnecessary bloodshed. But they needed to act fast. Open a channel to the rebel flagship, she ordered. The communications officer nodded, and moments later, a flickering hologram appeared on the bridge, a figure clad in battered armor, their face obscured by a helmet. The alien's voice crackled through the speakers. Who are you? You're not Xarnak. Fiona stepped forward. I'm Ambassador Fiona Westbrook of Earth. We've been sent by the Xarnak to deal with this situation, but I'd rather talk than fight. What's going on here? The alien hesitated, then slowly removed their helmet, revealing a pair of large, expressive eyes set in a face that was vaguely feline. We're the Free Union. We fight for our independence from Xarnak tyranny. Olivia leaned closer to Fiona. They must have been part of the Empire at one point. Fiona nodded, keeping her gaze on the alien. We've just joined the Xarnak Empire. But we don't share their values. If there's a legitimate grievance here, we want to hear it. Tell us your story. The alien's eyes narrowed, clearly suspicious. Why should I trust you? You fly a Xarnak banner. Fiona's voice softened. Because I don't want to see innocent people die. And because I've seen what the Xarnak are capable of. If you keep fighting, they'll send reinforcements. You won't survive. The alien hesitated again, but then their shoulders sagged, as if the weight of their rebellion was suddenly too much to bear. The Xarnak conquered our worlds decades ago. They promised protection, but all they've given us is oppression. Our resources are stripped away, our people forced into servitude. We had no choice but to fight back. Fiona's heart sank. It was a story she had heard too many times before, one of imperial power crushing the spirit of those who resisted. She knew they couldn't allow this to continue, but she also knew they couldn't afford to openly defy the Xarnak. Not yet. Let us help, she said softly. We can negotiate on your behalf. If we play this right, we can find a solution that doesn't end in bloodshed. The alien's eyes searched hers, looking for any hint of deception. After a long pause, they finally nodded. Very well. But if you betray us, Ambassador, we'll take as many of the Xarnak down with us as we can. Fiona smiled faintly. I wouldn't expect anything less. Back on the Artemis, Fiona's mind raced as she formulated a plan. They had the beginnings of a potential diplomatic resolution, but it would require delicate handling and deception. The Xarnak would not take kindly to hearing that one of their colonies had rebelled, let alone that the humans were negotiating on their behalf. As the Artemis returned to the main Xarnak fleet, Fiona prepared to face the Emperor. She knew this next meeting could determine the future of Earth's relationship with the Xarnak and perhaps the fate of countless other worlds in the galaxy. The Artemis glided back into the Xarnak fleet, dwarfed by the massive warships that patrolled the space around Halvrion Prime. Fiona Westbrook stood on the bridge, her fingers gripping the edge of the command console as the ship was guided into its assigned docking bay. The weight of the upcoming confrontation with Emperor Tilvos pressed down on her, but her resolve remained unshaken. They had uncovered the truth behind the rebellion, but presenting that truth to the Xarnak would require a dangerous balance of diplomacy and deception. Colonel Isaac Vaughn moved to her side, his voice low. Are you sure about this? If the Emperor suspects anything, we're finished. Fiona met his gaze. It's the only way. If we play this right, we can protect the Free Union and keep Earth out of a war with the Xarnak. But we'll need to be very careful. Isaac's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Then we'd better make sure everything goes perfectly. Let's hope the Emperor sees it that way, Fiona replied, turning to the communications officer. Send word to the palace. Request an audience with the Emperor immediately. As the message was sent, Olivia and Lieutenant Zoe Parker joined them at the front of the bridge, their faces reflecting the same mix of concern and determination. The tension on the ship was palpable. Even the Xarnak observers stationed aboard had grown noticeably more watchful since their return from the colony. After what felt like an eternity, a reply came from the palace. "The Emperor will receive you," the officer reported. "He awaits your report in the Great Hall." Fiona exhaled slowly, glancing at her team. "Let's go. The sooner we get this over with, the better." The Great Hall of the Imperial Palace was as imposing as ever, the towering columns and floating platforms casting long shadows over the chamber. Emperor Tilvos sat atop his throne, his massive form radiating an aura of silent authority. High Chancellor Gorthon stood beside him, his piercing yellow eyes focused intently on the humans as they entered. The Artemis crew approached the dais with measured steps, the soft echo of their boots the only sound in the vast hall. Fiona led the group, her expression composed, though her mind raced with calculations. Every word, every gesture would be scrutinized. She couldn't afford a single misstep. The Emperor's voice boomed out across the chamber. "Ambassador Westbrook, you have returned from your mission. What is the status of the insurrection?" Fiona inclined her head in a respectful bow. "Your Majesty, the situation is more complex than we initially understood. The rebels are not a single faction, but a coalition of oppressed species, united by a common desire for independence from the Empire." The court murmured softly, but Tilvos's glowing eyes remained fixed on her. Oppressed species' voice held an edge of menace. "You claim that my empire, which has brought order and stability to countless worlds, has oppressed these rebels." Fiona met his gaze without flinching. "It is their perception, Your Majesty. From their perspective, the resources taken from their worlds and the forced conscription of their people into Xarnak service have left them with little choice but to rebel." Chancellor Gorthon's expression darkened. "Are you suggesting that the Xarnak Empire is to blame for this rebellion?" Fiona didn't falter. "I am merely presenting the facts as they stand. The rebels see themselves as fighting for their freedom, not out of malice, but because they feel they have no other recourse. They do not seek to destroy the empire, they want autonomy." The Emperor's claws tapped rhythmically on the armrest of his throne, his eyes glowing brighter. "And what, Ambassador, do you propose we do with these rebels? Shall we simply allow them to defy the will of the Empire?" Fiona took a breath, steadying herself for the gamble she was about to make. "Your Majesty, I propose a diplomatic solution. The Free Union rebels are not a significant military threat to the Xarnak. If you offer them limited autonomy, with certain conditions that benefit the Empire, you could resolve this conflict without further bloodshed." The court erupted into shocked whispers. Gorthon's expression twisted into one of disbelief. "You suggest that the Emperor negotiate with rebels? Unthinkable." But Tilvos raised a hand, silencing the room. His gaze remained locked on Fiona. "You tread dangerous ground, Ambassador. Why should I show mercy to those who defy me?" Fiona's response was calm yet firm. "Because mercy is the ultimate display of strength. Crushing the rebellion might work in the short term, but it will only foster more resentment, more uprisings in the future. However, if you grant them a controlled form of autonomy under the Empire's banner, they will have no reason to rebel. They will become loyal subjects by choice." Isaac, Olivia, and Zoe stood behind her in tense silence, watching the Emperor's reaction with bated breath. The entire court seemed to hold still, waiting for Tilvos's verdict. Finally, after a long, excruciating pause, the Emperor leaned back in his throne. His voice, when it came, was deep and thoughtful. "An intriguing proposal. And what guarantees do you offer that these rebels will accept such terms? What prevents them from turning on the Empire once they have their autonomy?" Fiona had anticipated this question. "They have agreed to a ceasefire, pending negotiations. As a gesture of goodwill, they will release any Xarnak prisoners they hold. In return, they seek assurances that their worlds will be allowed to govern their own internal affairs, while still contributing resources to the Empire's defense." Chancellor Gorthon's eyes flared with suspicion. "You have spoken with these rebels directly?" Fiona nodded. "We have. They want peace, but they also want freedom. If you give them that within limits, you will strengthen your empire, not weaken it." Tilvos studied her for a long moment, his eyes glowing brighter, as if peering into her very soul. Then, without warning, he laughed a low, rumbling sound that sent a ripple of unease through the court. You are bold, Ambassador. Very bold. To suggest such a course of action to the Emperor of the Xarnak is unprecedented. His laughter ceased abruptly, and his expression turned cold. But I am not a fool. I know there are times when force is not the answer. I will consider your proposal. For now, the rebellion will be allowed to stand down and negotiate under my terms. However, if they break this agreement, there will be no mercy. Fiona nodded, relief washing over her, though she kept it from showing. Thank you, Your Majesty. I will relay your conditions to the Free Union at once. The Emperor waved his hand dismissively. You have served your purpose, humans. Go. We will speak again once the negotiations are complete. As Fiona and her team left the Great Hall, the weight of their narrow escape hung over them. They had avoided war for now, but the path ahead was still fraught with danger. Back aboard the Artemis, Fiona stood in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The adrenaline from their encounter with the Emperor was beginning to fade, leaving her feeling exhausted yet strangely triumphant. They had managed to avert a disaster, but the delicate balancing act they were performing with the Xarnak and the rebels was far from over. Isaac approached, his footsteps quiet. I didn't think it would work, honestly. But you pulled it off. Fiona smiled faintly. It's not over yet. We've bought time, that's all. He nodded. Still, it's more than we had before, and you're right, mercy can be stronger than force. She turned to face him, her expression thoughtful. The Xarnak aren't invincible. They've built an empire on fear, but fear only lasts so long. If we can plant the seeds of diplomacy, of cooperation, then maybe, just maybe, we can change things. Isaac's eyes gleamed with the spark of hope. You really think the Xarnak can change? Fiona looked back at the stars, her gaze distant. Everyone can change, Isaac, even the most powerful empires. As the ship drifted through the void, the stars stretching out endlessly before them, Fiona allowed herself a moment of quiet triumph. Earth had faced one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy and come away with more than just survival. They had earned respect, gained allies, and perhaps, in time, they might even reshape the course of galactic history. The journey was far from over, but for now, they had proven one thing beyond a shadow of a doubt: humanity was not to be underestimated. And neither were the gifts they brought.